say anything.
You said a lot of things. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dual Screens podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Fontana, and with me is my partner in crime. He is Andy Asimakis. How you doing, buddy?
God, is it October? Because we're talking about horror games really early in the year. I'm so excited when
I
we do
have
this.
given up on the fact that you were like you would actually save horror games for horror time.
Nah,
It's anything goes here on Dual Screams. That's right.
I
It's a Dual
think
Screams edition.
I think any opportunity to make you feel uneasy and uncomfortable
No such thing.
it gives me so much joy.
I am always comfortable, but you know who's not comfortable? It's Aaron Wise. That's right. Aaron Wise is the indie horror game maker and one of many developers of the Forgotten Tapes Analog Nightmares, a collection of horror stories, each with its own unique take on analog horror, out right now on Steam. So go rush there right now. This is actually a really unique little collection. And when Andy brought this up, on this week's Indies Nuts podcast, which you can find on your favorite podcast service of choice. Maybe we're having issues with our feed right now, so we do apologize if you haven't been able to listen to that the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I was really intrigued by the whole philosophy behind this game. So Aaron, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you very much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, this is gonna be dope. We're gonna have a good time with this one.
Yeah.
So we kind of laid it out there that this is a collection of horror stories, but why don't you kind of let our listeners know exactly what they'd be getting into with the Forgotten Tapes?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, what it is it started off as kind of an idea to be somewhat of like a game jam, as it were. So we were going to get like a bunch of developers together just to make some like small games based on a theme, and we'd kind of looked at what other sort of like people had done in the past, and we wanted to sort of see if we could sort of like replicate it but kind of make it more thematic. So obviously we've got the whole analog horror section, which obviously if you've ever sort of seen any of the kind of analog horror videos on YouTube, things like, you know, like the government tapes that tell you, you know, like avoid eye contact with these strange individuals kind of thing, and then if you see them lay on the ground. So we kind of wanted to kind of go down that weird route. Essentially what you get is 9 games from 9 different people plus like a small little hub world. The hub world kind of acts as like a menu, but it's kind of interactive in the way that you can walk around a haunted house and you can find VHS tapes, and then you play those VHS tapes. Each VHS tape acts as a game that somebody made. So obviously you've got my one, you've got one by Vidus Games, you've got Elegant Crow, Tobias. You know, there's a bunch of really good ones on there, and you can just click on them, launches a new game inside that window, and you get to play those and have that kind of unique different experience. And the way we kind of did it was nobody really kind of knew what the other person was kind of doing. We would kind of do it in a really secretive way. So with my game Consume, it obviously starts and it's kind of purposely janky kind of at the beginning because it's meant to replicate those old PS1 kind of games. And you know, and then you know the hook is it like pans out and you realize you've been playing a video game inside a game. And I thought it was kind of meta because it was like a game inside a game inside a game at that point. And it was just one of those kind of really weird things. And then you have the kind of seriousness come back into it, and it's this really kind of creepy atmosphere, and you don't really kind of know what's going on. It's huge elements of environmental storytelling and stuff like that. You know, try to avoid a lot of the whole tropes of collecting notes and keys and, you know, that kind of thing, and just kind of having a bit of a spooky time in terms of like, I don't really know what's going to jump out at me around the corner, and kind of instilling that false sense of security in people and then attacking them when their guard's down.
I will say, Aaron, I think your game is the scariest game in that collection, and I'll tell you why right now, and you can correct me on this. There's a refrigerator in the kitchen that has a bunch of stickers on it. There's like RoboCop and Terminator, and I was examining it really closely, and I swear to God, there's stickers for characters from Mortal Kombat Annihilation on the refrigerator, like Cyrax and Smoke. And if any memory invokes more horror and terror than that movie does, holy shit.
Yeah, that is astute. I was afraid of Play-Doh for a very long time after watching that movie. Those claymation dragons were something else, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point before, like before we got you on the show, I was playing through some other games in the collection there, and they're all really great. And then when I came across yours, I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is like janky beyond janky in the
Yeah, yeah,
beginning. I'm
yeah.
like, I'm bringing this guy on the show with the jankiest game in the collection. Fuck, can I reschedule? But then when the whole like flip happens and you're in the real world per se, and
Yeah.
it's like one of the most polished looking, beautiful, photorealistic games in the collection, I was like, that's some good shit. That's some really good shit.
Oh, thanks.
So
So
why'd you?
what
What,
is
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andy.
oh no. You go, you
I
go.
just want to know why you chose that. Like, was it just a? Did you set off and make the janky part first, and then decide this is way too janky? Let me pull a left turn here and like change it up, or did you have
No,
the polished part first, and then you just like this is how I
no,
want to start it off?
the polished part came first
Yeah.
with all the logic and the code and everything like that.
Thank
And
goodness.
when I was actually doing like all of that, and people were like going, because obviously what the process is, we will play test, right? Because obviously we don't just want to keep everything fully secret and then just release it. There's obviously a level of quality assurance we have to do because we're selling a game. So we obviously want to make sure that everybody's game launches properly, there's no bugs and stuff like that. So when it was coming around to me to share my stuff, I was like purposely giving them like just little tidbits, but I was like sharing screenshots of like the low poly PS1 kind of part, and I was like letting people play that bit, and you could tell people were like,
Uh-oh.
okay, this is good start, all this kind of thing. Like, yeah, we're good to sort of see where you go from here and all this kind of thing. And it wasn't until I think maybe a couple of weeks, a month before release, I was just like, okay, here you go. And then the messages would just come flooding in, like, oh my god, like I just didn't expect this and all this kind of thing. And I think people are gonna kind of like flip when they see that kind of thing. And I have had a few messages from like YouTubers and stuff that have played it and be like, at first I was like, what is he making me play and all this kind of stuff. But that it kind of goes back to my initial point. I really wanted to try and recreate some of that kind of awkwardness that you got in a lot of the early PS1 games. And you go back and play them now, and some of them are just buggy and, broken in some areas. And it was back in a time where you couldn't even update these things. So they keep their charm no matter how old they go. So that's kind of it with that one. And then the real thing kicks in.
It must be uniquely fun to tell an analog horror story because I feel I'm a huge fan of horror, and you could watch a slasher film or like a Rosemary's Baby, and the story is all pretty much laid out for you, but I won't find like a 4-hour video diving into what the true meaning of a horror film is. But an analog horror story, you can theorize till like the cows come home. So what's that like creating this specific subgenre of horror, of that analog horror?
Um, like, what was it like creating that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Like what goes into the process?
Mhm.
Yeah, so like I said, initially I think it was just kind of like really going to kind of start as a game jam, and we got our initial lot of devs together, and the process was like we got everyone together and we had like a meeting saying like, okay guys, so this is what we want to do. We've got this idea to have like a launcher and we'll play everyone's games and stuff like that. And a lot of the devs that came together love low poly kind of stuff. And so the process was essentially we kind of put a bunch of like options on the wheel. Like on analog horror was never kind of like that's definitely what we want to do. We actually had a bunch of ideas, and we literally wrote on a spin wheel like what we're going to do, and then we just spun the wheel and it landed on analog horror. And then from
Oh
there,
shit. Wow.
yeah, that was pretty much it. And then from there, that's when we kind of all decided like, so the actual process in what we wanted to do with the collection was kind of formulated, but what was the theme? And then from there we would let the devs choose whether or not they feel like they could actually execute something. Because as you can imagine, when you get a bunch of people together, you've got a bunch of people that'll be like, oh yeah, analog horror, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, body horror, and then oh this horror, and then there's no, it's never like all 9 of you unanimously vote yes, okay, analog horror. So the only fair way we decided to do it was kind of just add a bit of randomization to it, and that's kind of how we landed on the analog horror theme. And then from there, everyone went away and planned their games.
What are the important aspects of an analog horror game? Like when you're actually pulling the pieces together, what it like I don't know what an analog horror is. Like when you first explained it in the
Mhm.
in, the top of the show. I was like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. But from a developer standpoint, what are you pulling in to creating an analog horror game?
So you're really kind of tapping in, pulling into the sort of themes and the styles that analog horror kind of has become synonymous with. So a lot of kind of VHS, it's almost kind of found footage,
Okay.
kind of aspect. Like a lot of inspiration from there's a show on YouTube called Local 58, if you've ever seen that.
Mhm.
It's a really, really good one, and it's just like a short 3 minute video about a guy who's driving down a freeway, and he's got his video camera on record, or his dash cam on
Hmm.
record, and all you can hear in the video is basically his sat nav saying, "In 200 miles, turn left," kind of thing, and it will like cut to when he's turning, and it will say, "At the end of the road, make turn right," and it will turn right, and then it will say, and then all of a sudden it just becomes really kind of creepy, and it's not necessarily something you can see, but rather that you can sort of hear as well. And it will say, "At the end of the road, turn off your lights," and he's in the middle of the woods. In his car, and it's like pitch black, and he has to turn off his lights, and then you'll just start to hear the sat nav turn, and like it just kind of like becomes warped and stuff, and his lights will start flashing on his car, and there's this thing walking closely towards him. It's kind of almost like you don't really know in an ideal world, you don't really kind of know it. The whole uncanny stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of like that, right? It's kind of got a humanoid, or like you can kind of recognize it, but there's something off about it,
Right.
and that's kind of what makes it creepy, because your brain can't interpret, what it is that's wrong, but you just know something's wrong.
That reminds me a lot of when I was a kid. I was irrationally afraid of the clothing hanging in my closet,
Mm-hmm.
just because my brain would make them into creatures. Like I would just, because you could see like the outline of a body, and you would see arms for the shirts and stuff like that, and I used to think like, oh my god, that's like a monster that's going to come alive, and it's like Slender Man gonna get me. And now this is way before Slender Man, obviously. I'm 36, but I remember I had to trick myself into thinking that they were friendly monsters. So like I would have conversations with like friendly vampires and monsters that were in my
Yeah.
closet. But yeah, no, that totally came back. It almost feels like it's like this would be perfect for a VR setup.
Mm-hmm.
Like just living in this situation where you're not, everything is kind of familiar but in an awkward way. I feel like that would be really cool for a VR experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a really good stuff with VR that you can, and I don't really feel like analog horror has been tapped into much, especially in like the VR thing. Off the top of my head, I don't really think I can think of any one thing.
Mm.
But yeah, it's definitely something that I recommend people get into.
You should watch Skinamarink, Steve. That's
I
gonna
have. I didn't like it.
it's like
Skinamarink.
it's
Okay.
like being in a child's nightmare. So you didn't like it.
No, I,
Interesting.
I really didn't like it. No, no, no.
I thought that was too long.
Hmm.
That was longer than it should have been.
Yeah.
And you can tell way more effective horror stories in that way without being close to 2 hours in length.
Mm.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. It's definitely a niche kind of movie for a select few. I mean, I've seen very divided opinions on that movie. Like some people like really love it, and I've been terrified by it, and I've seen people that just outright hated it and walked out after 20 minutes and stuff like that. I'm not saying it's a bad movie in that I just think it's down to a very specific type of person to kind of watch it, and I think we all kind of have been ruined maybe a little bit like by kind of like what would you call now these generic horror tropes and stuff, so we kind of
mhm,
go in expecting to be like the boogeyman to be around the corner and jump
Right.
scare and all that kind of stuff, and there's
mhm.
different types of horror, as we obviously like alluded to with like analog horror and stuff, and there's like loads of subgenres that, so I think like people just kind of expect a typical kind of horror movie, right? And we're not,
Right.
and we didn't get that with that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, again, and I think I was also spoiled on like the bite-sized YouTube format of analog horror, like a 2 minute video, but
Yeah.
it's a hour-long series, but it's all just bite-sized chunks telling a larger story.
Yeah.
And seeing it just all in one go with not much going on, it's really hard to stay focused on it. I mean, when
Hmm.
things happen, it's interesting, but that could have been like half the length. Would have been, I would
Yeah.
imagine, twice as effective as it was.
Mm.
Well, to that point, um, does the same go for a collection of horror games like the Forgotten Tapes, where you look at it and or is it broken up enough where it doesn't feel like an arduous process to get
Well,
through everything?
Aaron's game's like I think I got like half an hour. I was done with your game.
I
It
mean,
was a perfect.
in
It's the perfect.
totality. I mean, in
Yeah.
totality. Like if you're, you like you said, you have your little bite-sized things for a video, but
Mhm.
even, but if they're trying to tell a common story or something that loops in, you don't necessarily want to break that up because you kind of lose your momentum. But for someone like me, who may find these things too unsettling, I might have to stop and go a little bit more or something like that. Like, how do you reconcile as a group putting this collection together? Like, can you play these in any order? And if so, did that affect how you guys approached um, the pacing of each individual story?
So yeah, so straight off the bat, you can kind of play them in any order. What we had in mind when we first came up for it is we obviously are a community of people. We, respect a lot of the YouTubers and streamers and stuff like that. So we had them at the forefront of our mind as well when making this, and the fact of this is kind of like prime YouTube like content in a way that they can just go and pick at any game. They're about max kind of half an hour, maybe at a push 40 minutes long, and that's great video length for maybe one video or two videos if you want to squeeze a couple of games in, and they love that stuff. So we kind of had that in place so when you first start the game, you can just go in, choose any tape that you want and play. Some are hidden, but they're not like ridiculously hidden. Like you go up, you interact with the
Mm.
fridge, and you've got Bobo's quest in there and stuff like that. So you can play them from any from the start. There's no unlocking. There's no kind of save mechanic to that kind of effect. So we purposely didn't want to kind of like put too much work on these on people as well, because some people that are in this collection, it's their first game, but also their first game on Steam. So it's kind of like been a big deal for them. And it's kind of like when we started this, we wanted to help with sort of like getting that recognition for not only like the devs kind of thing as well, but kind of start building a brand between myself and Alexander Bruins, who is kind of my partner in this.
So neat. I want to get into a little bit about your game because again, it's a bite-sized game and there's not a lot of information in terms of what is happening.
Yep.
Like I know that there's some sort of rage virus maybe thing going around,
Oh.
and there's a woman who's having an affair with some guy and is having his baby.
Yep.
Where did all that stuff come from?
Is in
The
my inspiration for it.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's just, I guess, a process of planning. It's just kind of thinking about like what can I do with environmental storytelling without having a player read hundreds of notes, kind of thing. So the idea was just kind of came to me one night when I was sitting there, and um, you know, my wife and was kind of sitting there, and she knew I was kind of, whenever I tried to come up with something, sometimes I not necessarily struggle with a bit, because you think of story, you got to think of mechanics, you got to think of like kind of what does the game want to feel and look like, and so there's many different kind of factors to this. So we just kind of sitting there one night, and I sort of came up with this story, and I just said, like, what if, there's this kind of like government conspiracy kind of, or like not government conspiracy but government warning going on around, saying, look, there's people acting out, and they're not acting normal, they're kind of like really aggressive in nature. If you see anyone, don't let them in, that kind of thing. And then what do we do in terms of like, what if you're like trapped in the house with somebody that is that that you've been sort of like emotionally and physically kind of hurting with like an affair or something like that. And it's just this kind of way of getting out this story of so obviously the woman's been having an affair, but she ends up being killed by this rage-filled husband because of this thing that's going on. And then you've got the government warning video going on. And, I kind of wanted to have this ambiguous ending where, are you Chris or are you the husband?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I kind of just kind of leave that for the player to decide on whether or not you're the bad guy in this, or you're the good guy who's trying to get out. And so those monsters, things at the right at the end when you die, are they the things that you've been seeing, or is that the remnants of the husband who's been stomping around the house, that kind of thing, really. So Yeah,
I love how like the horror is already happening when the game
mm,
starts.
yeah,
Like there's already blood all over your entire home at that point, and you're just getting off of playing a little janky video game on the
yeah.
TV.
And I'm not sure if you picked up on it, but while you're actually playing that game, you can actually hear things that are going on in the house. So
Oh shit.
while you're actually playing the
Oh
game,
shit.
you can hear people walking around, and there's like sometimes you can hear some whispering and stuff like that, depending on your volume settings. But yeah, you can actually hear people like arguing, fighting, stomping around the house and stuff while you're playing that game. And it's not until you realize that all of that stuff has then happened while you've been sitting there doing that, or has it already happened? So it's again, it's just one of those kind of extra little pieces I thought I'd put in.
There was a guy behind a chain link fence. Is it you also? Is that what it's modeled after? I'm seeing a
The
little
guy
similarity.
behind the chain link fence is me. It's like a really squashed kind of 128 by 128 like resolution model of myself. Yeah.
He says something I can't really make it out when he's
He
speaking.
said, was it was saying, you won't survive out here. The hunger it will get you to.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's
See.
almost like what would happen if, you know, like when your parents, when you and your sibling, or Andy, maybe like you and your brother having a fight, and your parents just put you in a room and be like, work it out, don't come out until it's figured out. Like
Yeah.
those are the vibes I'm getting. Like, okay, you guys are you're having an affair. Here's the two guys, and you figure it out, and then the government just locks you in,
Yeah.
and obviously it doesn't go very well for
Yeah.
for them in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So you wanted to make a brand out of this. You want to kind of figure that whole aspect out. Maybe what was the feedback from some of the devs that were doing this for their first game? Like what were those conversations like? And you know, since then, what has life been like for them?
So I think at the beginning it was very sort of excitable and everyone was like really super down to get it, and you know, a lot of people kind of just cracked on with their game, and some got done a lot sooner rather than others. And like I said, some were kind of like their first game and also their first game on Steam, so extra attention to detail has gone into things. um Generally, I'd say it was very, very positive. I think as we got kind of closer to release, people got very nervous about these things because obviously we requested a bunch of keys. They went to YouTubers, and a lot of high-profile YouTubers played them. But what I'm most proud of, kind of thing, and I share the statistics when I get them from Steam, is things like, you know, we're sitting at very positive reviews. I think there's like a couple of negative ones, but that's just, you know, again, there are always opinion pieces with these kind of
Sure.
things. And but to have the amount of sales that we've had, because I think as of Monday coming, so in a couple of days' time, it's only been out 4 weeks, but you know, it's got thousands of downloads. We've got the sales stuff from Itch, loads of videos. We've have a highest current, which for a new kind of brand is quite high. The concurrent players was 34 at any given time, which for me was like really impressive. And yeah, the reception has generally been pretty good. A lot of the YouTubers have liked it. People have been having a lot of fun sharing the videos around, that kind of stuff. And you know, people have been able to make some money from this too, which is also a sort of a plus for these aspiring devs, because everyone's got different kind of levels of experience. Everybody uses different engines. For me, I use Unreal Engine. We've got people who use Godot. We've got people who use Unity, that kind of thing. And it's great to sort of being able to make sure that they all kind of work together.
How the hell does that work?
Yeah, I was gonna say
So
when you
yes,
optimize that stuff.
we have like a, like I said, a launcher, and essentially we've got this piece of code in there. Which Unreal doesn't do it natively, but I was able to find like a plugin, and it took me a while to figure it out. But there was a way that we can basically force it to launch additional like exe applications from within the game. So what
Mm.
I had to do is create a path, in like create a subfolder, put everybody's game in that subfolder, and then individually map paths to everybody's game. And then when someone pushed E on it, it would launch that path and then the .exe, and then it just opens up a new window and plays that game. And then it gives that player the control of the new window. And when they close it, it forces the control back to the other window. It was very sort of complex, and it was one of those things that I was kind of really battling with because my game had been done, and I was like, oh no, this launcher thing's not working. And then I think it was like in the final 72 hours, I got it working. I was like, oh, great. So
Did you know that that was like something that was even possible?
in Unreal, I didn't know it was possible. It was possible in Unity, that much I do know. So we did have a backup plan for like one of
Okay.
the other developers on the thing would have to, but because like the launcher had been made and like the thing, it was literally just like the code thing holding me back.
Pesky code.
Obviously a full thing was like delay the game by maybe like another week, quickly make another like launcher thing and then get it done in Unity and it would have been fine, but it would have just been extra work and stuff, and we'd already had a couple of delays with some stuff, so we didn't want to really delay it anymore. So it all worked out in the end, and now
Is
I
this
learned
the
something new.
yeah, I mean it does feel like you're double clicking on an icon because you get the full like logo splash, the title,
Mhm.
and has that effect.
Yeah.
Is this the first of many? Because I really love this format. The idea of like having a house acting as like your stage select in effect as you're walking around exploring, seeing funky items like on a bed or in a sink or taped to a wall, and then that's like a window into this whole other world.
Mhm.
It's like a world within worlds. Like I want to see more of this. It's a really good format for this
Thank
kind
you.
of storytelling.
Um, to answer your question in short, yes, we are already hard at work on collection two.
Yes.
Nice. You spun the wheel.
Yes.
Are you ready to announce what the wheel landed on?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll tell you guys. So, we are officially working on body horror, so things like The Thing and stuff like that. So,
Ooh.
yeah, yeah,
See, I don't
That's
like
the top, my favorite
I
kind of
don't
horror.
like
Love it.
the sound of like stabs, like knives going into flesh. Like for example, in Goodfellas,
Mhm.
when they're stabbing, I forget his name, in the back in the trunk, and all that
Yeah,
stuff. Like just the sound of that makes me want to puke. But
yeah.
there's something about body horror that just make I'm fascinated with. Just because like sometimes just the abomination that some of this stuff can come out as and stuff like I loved I don't know, I guess yeah, I guess it would be considered body horror, but the Blob, like watching the Blob just
Mm,
devour things and like
yeah,
what it pukes out is like, oh, it's so cool.
yeah.
um cool. So did you really spin the wheel, or did you guys just were like, we were really hoping body horror was going to be the first one, so now let's just do it as the second one?
So we did have a bit of a. I definitely think there was no wheel spinning on this one, but
Okay.
there was a rather large debate between body horror and mascot horror.
Mascot horror.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So
Now
like
what do
Five
you
Nights at Freddy's kind of thing,
That's what
and
I was gonna say. Like,
Yeah.
do you consider like a Freddy or a Jason a mascot at this point? But I guess you would literally go like furry horror, or
yeah.
that's dope.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a debate, but I think I'm glad to say that body horror won. And if you don't really like stabbing sounds that much, you're probably not going to like my game.
Well, you did have those bloody footprints, like the
Yeah, so the bloody footprints and the handprints and stuff. Yeah, so this one's going to be a little obviously a lot different in turn time. I've also teamed up with Sulfur, the one who did Funhouse of Blood on the first collection.
Ooh,
So
oh man.
he's working on that one with me. He was one of the developers that has only actually been using Unreal for like 3 months at this point. So I'm kind of trying to help him and coach him into like some certain things while we kind of work on that together. So that's kind of a fun little duo.
does that mean less games in this next collection, or did you get other people to come in and make some games?
We actually got more in this one.
Damn,
Yeah,
we got some breaking news here. We got folks. This is why you listen and watch the Dual Screens podcast right here.
yeah. We got a
This
new
might
new
need an
launcher,
article
new
there,
games.
Andy. We're getting some
Dude,
information.
yeah, we're breaking all the scoops. It's live on the show.
Well, when we're
Um,
ready, well, I can always send you guys some early stuff and for you guys to check it out.
Dope.
Steve, I'm gonna come over your house with this. The second I get any sort of like preview build, I am marching over in the dead of night, like 2 in the morning, when all the kids are asleep and the wifey's asleep,
Hell yeah.
and it's just us and the creaks and cracks of your big old house.
Sure. It's not that big, but yeah, sure.
It's big enough.
And then okay,
It'll do. It'll do.
that's fair.
Aaron, what are some of your key inspirations when you're trying to develop? Because it's not just this. You've been doing horror games for I think 1,000 years at this point. I looked at your itch.io page and it's just there's so many games
Yes.
on this list. And Steven, his latest game up here
Oh
is
no.
called Eat Your Fucking Soup.
Okay. Does it take place in a nursing home?
No.
Okay. Eat your fucking soup, Grandma.
Where do you what inspires you when you're putting all these horror stories together? What's your key source of inspiration? Is it just all the media you've consumed throughout your lifetime of being an indie horror game dev? Is it actual experience in in your life? Like what's causing all of this chaos to become into horror games you can all love and appreciate?
I would say it's definitely kind of growing up in the 80s and consuming a lot of what's that kind of like that kind of grunge kind of what's that I've forgotten what that type of movie genre is that Quentin Tarantino and all that
Grindhouse.
Oh,
did
Grindhouse?
Grindhouse kind of stuff. I love all
Grindhouse,
that
yeah.
kind of so Eat Your Fucking Soup is definitely kind of a big inspiration from like Grindhouse and stuff like that. It originally started so like I make a lot of horror games, but I also make like a lot of stupid meme games as well, or we call them shit posts because they tend to do quite well. And like I made a game in 30 minutes one night as a joke, and obviously you've had Matt Reeves on the show, and
Right.
he's basically been my mentor when I kind of started. Right, so I remember making this game, and I sent it to Matt, and I just said, "There you go, have fun." I made it in 30 minutes, kind of thing, and he laughed so hard because it's like it takes itself so serious, and it's like this big spooky house, and there's like all this whispering going on, and there's this big dark corridor, and you can't see anything, and as you walk down the corridor, this thing just jumps out of you, and it does that. What's that meme thing that goes, "Oh," that kind of thing, and that's it, and it just ends right, and it did stupid numbers. It's like by far my best game ever. The donations that people gave me on itch.io was ridiculous. Markiplier recently played it, and he jumped so hard his headphones fell off his head, and he basically gave me this huge shout out and was just like, "This guy made this game in 30 minutes. What are you doing with your life? Be more like this guy," and all this kind of stuff. And it's so I do those because I value them in terms of like if we think of it as a marketing kind of idea, as a brand awareness kind of thing. When I put those kind of games out, as well as the horror games, they do really well for like followers, Patreon, that kind of thing. And it's just something that it's like a brand awareness piece. So I don't discredit those. But with Eat Your Fucking Soup, it started off as just a small little kind of shit posty game like that where it wasn't going to take itself seriously, and then I brought a friend in, Vidas Salavagis, again another one of my mentors and friend from when I first started doing this, and we just sat there and we started writing this idea out one night, and it just became this really long-winded kind of story about this guy Ben Dover, who owns a soup company, and it's like taking the world by storm. Everybody loves it. Everybody's going around like buying it up in droves, and there's a whistleblower that keeps coming on the news every morning when you wake up and you go into the living room. The TV comes on and the news plays, and there's this whistleblower, and he's giving like an update on this hot new food item that's not everything as it seems kind of thing, and you shouldn't consume it. Please don't believe the hype and all this kind of thing, and you'll get sick. And then as the days progress, you start becoming kind of ill and sick, and you start seeing things like talking heads and all this kind of thing. So
Sure.
there's some talking heads in the thing, and you have to get rid of them by shoving them down the garbage disposal, and they kind of explode in all this kind of gore, and it fills the screen. It just goes all over you, and then it kind of goes down this tube, and then when you open up your fridge, there's like this nice can of soup waiting for you. So you consume that soup, and then I think it's like towards the end, you're like, "I'm not going to do this anymore," and then you find the thing that's kind of been eating the severed heads in the basement and regurgitating the soup, and you manage to kind of escape what you think is your house, but then the walls fall down, and it's this soup facility, and you're actually kind of like in this testing facility where they're kind of testing the effects of the soup on real world people, and you're like this experiment, and that's kind of where it was meant to end. Since then, it's turned into a rather fast-paced first-person shooter.
Of course.
Because I was gonna
Yeah.
say, like, you've clearly seen the stuff.
Yeah,
That's like I'm getting all those vibes from how you describe this game, and also Matt's head as a in the game is always
Matt's head and his wife is in the game.
pleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always pleasant to see.
I see an opportunity, Andy.
Oh, can we donate
Hang
our
on.
heads to your next horror game?
Yeah, you
Freeze frame.
absolutely can. Send me
Swing it.
headshots and I'll put them in there.
Hell yeah. Let's get it done.
Hell yeah!
That will be something that our community would want to do.
That's-
if you
that's-
could have
that's-
our heads
that's
be
some
shoved in a
marketing.
garbage disposal, let me tell
Dude.
you, people would be all over that.
Absolutely, it's a really simple thing to do. So if you guys want to do it, yeah, well, let's do it.
I'm not gonna have kids. This is my baby. This is my
is it.
legacy.
Andy, if and when this happens, you have to get a screen grab of it, and you have to make prints for us that we can hang on our
Yeah.
walls of
For
just our
instance, it's a dynamic
polygonal heads
like
being.
Android wallpaper. I want all of it.
Can we get the one that like those 3D images that change so we could be like normal, and then as you kind of move it, it's just exploded head? Like that'd be dope. I would love to give that to my
lenticular.
my son would love that shit. He'd be all over that. He's like, look, Daddy's head explodes. He's into all that. He loves watching videos of Five Nights at Freddy's and like Among Us, and like he just loves all those weird. There's this like Poppy Playtime. Never heard of it, but apparently it's a thing that all the kids just love watching. I don't get it at all, but I get it. It's like scary for a 7-year-old, but like not scary enough where I'm worried about it. But yeah, it's pretty funny, and like I bet put it this way, I bet he would really like your 30-minute game. Like I bet you he would like it. He would get
Dude,
it.
the fact that your son is 7 scares me. It means we're getting old.
He calls me Sussy Baka. I don't know what that means, but he calls me Sussy Baka all the time.
Okay.
He's like,
My kids
Daddy,
do the same.
You're Sussy Baka. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Your room.
You used to play Among Us? Yes, I did. I played Among Us. Were you ever the imposter? Yes, I was. You're Sussy Baka. Okay. All right. 7-year-old guy. I'm pretty sure he's bullying me, but I can't quite tell just yet. I'm a little out of touch.
Steven, your son is toxic.
So you mentioned Patreon. So do you specifically have a Patreon, or is it the group has a Patreon? What's that all about?
No, I have a Patreon. The group hasn't got a Patreon. I think the whole kind of bloody Volpine thing at the moment is kind of still in its infancy, to the point where we're still kind of working things out where we want to kind of take it. At the moment, we're purely focusing on solo releases. So we approach people that have very limited experience with either Steam and like promoting a game, and then obviously the collections as well. So with those are kind of our priorities at the moment. And I think as we kind of grow, we'll probably kind of maybe look into more of those kind of things as and when the time comes.
And what's your Patreon?
It's just I think it was at Trial by Fire, and that's pretty much it. Kind of thing. You can find me.
Patreon.com/Trial by Fire.
That's it. Yep.
Cool. Yep. Speaking of Patreon, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you're listening or watching right now, you could support us on Patreon as well. Patreon.com/dual screens. We want to thank our Patreon producers, Colton the Apprentice Nestler and FNH Paul, for supporting us all these months. And of course, everybody for as little as $1, you get into our VIP Discord. You get some bonus content that I post. I post about 5 bonus shows a week on there. Very mini little podcasts, so you could check out. It's called Steve's Thoughts. They range from all different topics, but you also get early access to shows like this one, which I will post today for you before it goes live on Monday. So
Look at you.
Look at that.
Look at you.
Look at
And
that.
also, I want to make a note. Just to sort of future-proof
Future-proof.
our heads in Aaron's next game.
Oh,
Aaron, I just became a patron.
there
by
you
the
go.
way, so
Oh, thanks.
You got me.
No, you didn't have
Sold.
to do that. No, I appreciate it.
And
Sold.
And
Like,
we'll put the link in the description
had
of the
to.
show as well. Not only are you going to get the link down below for the Forgotten Tapes, you could also follow Aaron on Twitter. We're going to have that down there as well, and the Patreon link, so folks, you could click all that. But before we go, we need to do some some rapid fire.
Yeah.
Rapid fire time. This is where we get to know you, Aaron.
Okay.
The you underneath the you, which
Okay.
based on what you've been telling us, I'm not quite sure we really want to know, but you
I
know
want
what?
to
Let's just go for it either way.
know.
I'm going to
Dying
start
to
us
know.
off with an easy question. It's an old faithful question. Aaron, is cereal a soup?
No.
Interesting. Andreas.
If past lives were a thing, what do you think yours was?
Town executioner.
Okay, wow.
Town executioner.
I love the specificity and the rapidity of that answer. It came so fast.
Follow-up rapid fire question. Does that mean you came back as a downgrade or an upgrade?
Downgrade.
Okay. Go ahead, Andy.
Let's see. If you could have an unlimited supply of one thing, what would that one thing be?
Money.
Yeah, it's got to be money.
Mm-mm-mm.
It's unfortunate that it has to be money, but I feel like money can pretty much give you an infinite supply of anything else.
Yeah, pretty much.
Unless unless it's like an esoteric, like intangible, like love.
I gotta tweak that question for next time.
Or rage. I would like an infinite supply of rage, please. You know, that could help, I guess, in some scenarios.
You want to meet my mom? She'll give you as much as you want.
Aaron, would you rather put a stop to all war or all world hunger?
Oh, probably all war, because I feel like hunger at some point can probably be mediated somehow.
Would you rather fart every time you laugh or burp every time you cry?
Burp every time I cry. Just thinking about how funny that would be.
Yeah. Would you rather have no eyelids or no lips?
No lips. I need my sleep.
Yeah, you could wear a sleep mask, I guess.
Given the opportunity, would you rather have a one-minute conversation with your past self or your future self?
My past self.
Either way, you're having a conversation with your future self, Andy.
Oh,
yes, you are. Depends on who you're asking in the conversation.
Okay. Would you rather be able to heal yourself or heal others at the detriment of your own health?
Heal others.
There's a heart underneath that tough exterior.
There is, yeah.
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
Beneath all the body horror.
Well, he's off executing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those people deserved it.
What
Obviously.
they do. What is your chicken soup for the soul? And is it even chicken soup?
It's not chicken soup, but it is a. My wife makes me make it like all the time. It's a. What is it? It's like a ramen, and I make it with pork, and then there's like a vegetable broth that I make with it, and I make my own tea-stained eggs, noodles, everything from scratch goes in there, and then put some spinach, some veggies in there as well, and that's my soup for the soul.
That is.
I love food.
Okay. All right. Would you rather discover a lost civilization in the deepest, darkest parts of our oceans, or would you rather discover a new civilization on a new planet?
Oh, new civilization on a new planet.
If you were given the chance to work on an established, iconic horror franchise, make a new game in that franchise, which franchise would that be?
Oh, that's a really tough one. I would have to say, since this recently came up in a conversation, probably Condemned,
Oh shit.
because Jace Hall, the guy that owns the license, is currently looking for an indie team to take it off his hands.
Well,
Cool. Go for it.
all right.
Make your
See,
pitch. Let's go.
I
Yeah.
haven't heard about that series in a very long time. I actually much respect for bringing that. That's a really good.
Mm.
Those are a good set of games.
Yeah.
Some good shit.
If you could sell one of your games to be made into the next horror movie franchise,
Ooh,
which one would you choose?
It's gonna be the soup one.
Yeah, it's actually either got to be Soup or After Hours, but I probably lean towards Soup. I think it's like good old comedy horror.
Who's making that movie? Who do you want to make that movie?
Oh wow, who would make that game? Let's bring back Tope Hooper.
Oh
I
man.
don't know who that is.
Oh
He
man.
made
Steven,
Salem's
Chainsaw
Lot.
Massacre. Yeah, it's like, you know,
Okay.
the guy's a
That should be fun.
well, you know,
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna buy that game right now, actually. I see it on your itch page.
it's free.
$4. Oh, is it? Cool.
Which
Well,
one?
I'll
Soup
give
game?
you oh After Hours.
Oh, it's on my Patreon.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
There you go.
There you go.
Awesome.
Get
I've
that on
already,
the
I've already,
Patreon.
I've already, I've already, I've
You
already,
already own it, baby. Go
yeah,
for
I want to give you $4 more. What were they thinking?
it. No, but that means you're gonna give itch money, right? Or do they not take a cut? I don't know how that works.
I have Itch take a percentage,
Aaron,
but not as high as Steam.
I'll just Venmo you $4 later. That's how we'll do it.
Would you rather have the power of flight or invisibility?
I didn't ask him a
You
question.
took too long.
Like,
Flight. I was not expecting flight from the horror guy, by the way.
oh, okay, no, definitely Flight.
Do you think you'd make a better cult leader or a cult member?
Yeah, let's go with Cult Leader.
You kind of
Nice.
already are one.
Hmm.
You got your own Patreon and everything.
Yeah,
Just don't ask people to eat the soup, I guess.
yep, don't need it.
Don't eat the soup. What's your favorite TV sitcom?
Sitcom?
Yeah.
Are the cartoon show ones that are kind of like sitcom-y? Do they count?
Yeah.
Like, so
It doesn't
probably
have to be
F-
a live studio.
Oh, okay,
audience.
F is for Family.
Oh,
I love
man.
that show so
Yeah,
much.
it's so great.
When is the next season? I'm dying to watch.
I know,
that. Oh
I
my
know.
god, so good. If I started
Bill-
today and built a wall every day for the rest of my life, there still wouldn't be enough walls for me to fucking put you through.
It's really good.
Why-
I use that one against my kids. all
Did
the
you
time.
tell to your son the other day?
Not to their face, but I think it. I think it.
Bill Burr is like my spirit animal. That man is a national treasure.
Yeah, he's great.
Protect him at all costs. Let's see. What's a silly one here? What is a childish thing that you still enjoy doing as a grown ass man?
Childish thing that I like doing still as a grown man. I probably still play a lot of hide and seek with my kids.
Oh, that's
Oh yeah,
great.
I
Yeah,
see.
That's
It's good.
so sweet.
Do you still have to
Yeah.
pee when you're hiding?
Yeah, but I just go anywhere.
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, it's his house.
It's your house. Like, who's
It's my house.
gonna
Yeah.
tell you where to pee? Not me. Not me. Not me.
Marking my territory.
Definitely not me. All right, I'll do one more, and then Andy, you'll take us home with the final question of the
you gotta-
of the
you gotta-
morning,
You gotta
afternoon,
put that on
evening.
me. Yes.
Let's think about this. Have you seen the movie Don't Look Up?
I haven't, but I think I know what it's about. It's like the end of the world meteorite.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
and nobody
Yeah.
believes them because
Yeah.
nobody believes scientists and all that stuff.
Yeah.
If you knew that the meteor was coming,
Mhm.
let's say it was in 1 week,
Yeah.
what would you do with that 1 week?
Make a game about a meteorite destroying the world.
Would you release it
No.
before, or no, you would never release it. You just make it.
Just tease it.
That's it. Here's a teaser trailer.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It would probably not, in all seriousness, be spent making games. It would probably just be with family, friends, doing everything that I tried to want to do in my life, and trying to get as much of that done as possible.
I feel like so I've thought about this because I listen and watch a lot of Neil deGrasse Tyson's Star Talk, and I always like I seriously think this is how mental I am. I think that if I knew where it was going to hit, like I somehow would convince my brain that I would figure out a way to get to the furthest away place from where it would hit and that I'd be fine. Like I would be able to convince myself that for that 1 week, like an idiot. Just full blown. All right, Andy. With that being
I
said,
don't know, man.
speaking of idiot, it is now
right.
time for
I
the
think I
final show.
think before I ask, I think I'd want to just be like right smack dab when it comes crashing down.
You want to be under it?
I'll be under it. I don't have to worry about survival, bunkers, running around in a post-apocalyptic world. If there's anyone left after the fact, just take me out.
Yeah.
Send me on my
Scarily
way.
enough, I feel like you and like 4 million people would be doing that.
Yeah.
Like if it was going to land in a field somewhere, like there would be a lot of people just laying down waiting for it to hit them.
Like I think I would just like take a bunch of NyQuil and just
Oh no,
fall
I don't.
asleep.
No, I wouldn't take that.
I don't want to be awake when it happens.
I kind of do. Like that would be a cool thing. I guess you can't.
All right, Aaron.
It's not an
It's been-
experience if you get vaporized, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Listen, your son's old. Your son's getting old. We're getting old.
Yeah.
There's meteorites, mortality conversation. I want to get off of that as soon as possible.
Yep.
Um,
I'm gonna take this Woodford
it's
Reserve.
been fun.
Finish this bottle.
It's been it's been fun, Aaron. We've had a lot of laughs
thanks.
in the last hour. You've been great, but now it's time.
It's time for all the fun to go away.
Well, the fun just leaves. It's out the door. It's the final question of the show.
Okay.
It's as unexpected as finding a decapitated head in a refrigerator or an arm in a washing machine. Those who play his game know what I'm talking about.
Hint, hint, wink, wink.
And the question is, it's a simple question, but yet also at the same time, the most complex question.
Mm-hmm.
And that question is, Andy or Steven?
Andy or Steven?
Mm-hmm.
That's
All
the
right.
one.
There you go. I said it.
All right. I heard it. I heard it.
Yes, yeah, I heard it too.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
agree then?
I totally agree. Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Excellent.
yeah, great. Yeah, I heard
Excellent.
it. Yeah,
Congratulations to the winner
Yes.
of that.
good stuff. Yeah, that was a great choice.
The winner.
Yeah,
And
you're a
still
they,
champion.
they call you wise for a reason, Aaron.
Yeah, I'm glad I
You
could
made
settle
that
that
right.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to bring us to the end of the show. If you want to follow us on social media, I'm at Batchild27. Andy's at Pants Guy. We are at Duel_screens. And Aaron is at Trial by Fire with a 3 as the E on Twitter. And I believe there's underscores between Trial and by Fire and all that
We'll
stuff.
give you all the links.
Yeah,
in
you'll have the
appropriate
links. But you know,
places.
for those of
Yeah.
you who are driving right now and you don't want to pull over into a ravine, and you just want to be like, "Hey, Alexa, make
Alexa,
it follow,
give Aaron money.
make it do
and
a
follow
file,
him."
make it do a follow." Check out the Forgotten Tapes Analog Nightmares out right now for a cool $7. So you get 7 games for $1, and then you get 2 games for free.
It's you seriously, yeah. That's
You
math.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know
it's
what I
good
mean?
math.
There, 9 games for $7. Can't go
math.
wrong. Can't go
Yep.
wrong. Is there anything you want to tell the folks before we leave, Aaron?
No, just thank you very much for listening. And you know, any newcomers that come across my way, hello, and feel free to reach out anytime. I'm always up for a conversation.
Dope.
Nice.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, viewers. Thank you, Aaron. And as always, please be excellent to each other.